Jennifer had already told her children Aunt Veronica was coming when she heard the word no over the phone. She was shocked because Veronica always said yes. For years, that was how things usually worked in Veronica's family. Nobody asked whether she was free before making plans that required her. They asked afterward, once the children had been told, the appointment had been scheduled, the food had been ordered, or somebody else's ride had fallen through. By then, Veronica wasn't deciding whether she wanted to help. She was deciding whether she was willing to disappoint someone. For most of her life, she hadn't been. So when her younger sister Jennifer called at 11:20 on a Saturday morning and said, "I need you to keep the kids tonight," Veronica's first response arrived automatically. Dear hearts, if you have ever struggled to name what was happening to you, or watched someone you love slowly become smaller beneath another person's expectation, subscribe and become part of the Velvet Circle, a community where women's and girls' experiences are believed, examined, and never dismissed as harmless drama. Let's continue from the 11:20 Saturday morning assumption. Okay, what time? Jennifer asked. She had already reached for the little notepad beside the refrigerator before she remembered. Tonight. Veronica looked across the kitchen at the blue dress hanging from the pantry door. She had bought it 3 weeks earlier for Camille Harper's retirement dinner. Camille had been Veronica's supervisor when Veronica first started working at the county records office almost 20 years ago, back when Veronica was 27 and terrified of making a mistake. Camille had taught her the job, defended her when a manager blamed her for an error she hadn't made, sat with her in the hospital waiting room when Veronica's father had his first heart attack, and continued sending her a birthday card every year, even after she'd retired. When Camille called to tell Veronica about the dinner, she had said, "You'd better come. Half the reason I'm having the thing is so I can see people I actually like." Veronica had laughed. Then she'd bought the dress. She'd made a hair appointment. She'd even bought earrings she didn't need because they caught the light when she turned her head and made her feel pretty. Now, Jennifer was talking about pickup times. Probably around 5:30, maybe 6. David's taking me to that concert. Remember? I told you about it. Veronica remembered. She also remembered that Jennifer had never asked her to babysit. Jennifer. I can't keep them tonight. There was a pause. Not a dramatic one. No music stopped. Nobody raised her voice. Veronica simply heard the little empty space where her sister's certainty had been. What? I can't keep the kids tonight. Another pause. Then Jennifer laughed. Girl, stop playing. I'm not playing. I have Camille's retirement dinner tonight. Camille from your old job? Yes. I thought that was just some dinner. Veronica looked at the blue dress. It is. Okay, so? 2 words. That was all. But something about them made Veronica stop. Okay, so? As though the existence of Jennifer's plans automatically erased hers. Veronica pressed her fingertips against the kitchen counter. So, I'm going. Silence again. This one felt different. Wait, you're serious? Yes. But I already told the kids they're staying with you. Veronica closed her eyes. There it was. The familiar weight landed exactly when it always landed. The children were excited. Jennifer had plans. Tickets had probably been purchased. Maybe David would be irritated. Maybe the children would be disappointed. And somehow, all of those things had already become Veronica's responsibility. A year earlier, 6 months earlier, maybe even 6 weeks earlier, Veronica would have looked at the dress hanging from the pantry door and told herself it didn't matter. Camille would understand. There would be other dinners. She could wear the dress somewhere else. The children loved staying with her anyway. She knew exactly how to make surrender sound reasonable. That was one of the things she was best at. I'm sorry you already told them, Veronica said, but I can't tonight. Jennifer's voice changed. Veronica, what is going on with you? Veronica frowned. Nothing. Because this isn't like you. For some reason, that hurt more than if Jennifer had called her selfish. Veronica looked at the dress again. No, she said quietly. I guess it isn't. For years, being dependable had been the nicest thing people said about Veronica. Her mother said it proudly. If Veronica tells you she's coming, she's coming. Her brother Bob said it whenever he needed something. That's why I call you. You're the only reliable one. Jennifer said Veronica was the person she trusted most with her children. Her Aunt Lorraine called her our little organizer because Veronica remembered who was bringing potato salad to Easter dinner, who needed a ride to the family reunion, who had allergies, whose birthday was coming, and which cousin wasn't speaking to which cousin and therefore shouldn't be seated together. Veronica liked being dependable. She liked the feeling of solving something. She liked the relieved sound people made when she said, "I'll take care of it." What she hadn't noticed was how rarely anyone asked what taking care of it would cost her. The answer was usually small. 20 minutes here, $40 there, a Saturday afternoon, a lunch break. A doctor's appointment rescheduled because her mother needed a ride to the beauty shop and didn't want to wait until Thursday. A new blouse returned because Bob needed help covering his electric bill. An evening spent making 2 trays of macaroni and cheese because Aunt Lorraine had volunteered Veronica to bring them to a church event Veronica wasn't attending. None of those things seemed large enough to object to. That was how they accumulated, quietly, one reasonable sacrifice at a time. Veronica had become so good at rearranging herself around other people's needs that eventually she stopped noticing she was doing it. Until one Tuesday afternoon in April. She had been sitting at her desk when her coworker Nina appeared beside the partition, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Come outside with me." Veronica glanced at the clock. "I've got 15 minutes. Then I'm stealing 14. They sat on a bench behind the building where 2 Bradford pear trees had begun dropping white petals across the sidewalk. Nina complained out her landlord for a while, and Veronica laughed until her phone buzzed. "Mom." She answered immediately. "Hey, Mama." "Baby, what are you doing after work?" Veronica knew the tone. "What do you need?" Her mother needed groceries. Not urgently. There was food in the house. She simply didn't feel like going to the supermarket. Veronica began mentally rearranging the evening. She would skip the gym, move laundry to tomorrow, pick up groceries, drop them at her mother's. Probably stay because her mother would ask why she was rushing. She could still be home by 8, maybe 8:30. "Okay," Veronica said. "Text me your list." When she hung up, Nina was looking at her. "What?" "Nothing." "Nina," her friend sipped her coffee. "Do you ever finish a sentence before you agree?" Veronica laughed. "What are you talking about? Your mother didn't even finish telling you what she needed." "She needs groceries. I heard." "So?" "So you said yes before you knew what she was asking." Veronica shrugged. "It's my mother." Nina nodded. Then she said something Veronica would remember later. "I didn't say you shouldn't help her." She didn't lecture Veronica about boundaries. She didn't diagnose her family. She didn't tell her to stop answering the phone. She just left the distinction sitting there. Helping wasn't the same thing as having no choice. Veronica forgot about the conversation, or thought she did. 3 weeks later, she stood in her bedroom wearing the blue dress. For 10 minutes after Jennifer's call, Veronica had expected the guilt to win. Instead, she'd taken a shower. Then she'd done her makeup. Now she turned slightly in front of the mirror and watched the earrings catch the light. She smiled. Then her phone buzzed. "Mom." Veronica stared at it. She already knew. "Hello? What happened between you and your sister?" "Nothing about hello. Nothing about how are you." Veronica sat on the edge of the bed. "She asked me to babysit tonight. I already had plans. She said you told her no." "I did." Her mother's silence carried disappointment with remarkable efficiency. "Veronica, that girl hardly ever gets to go anywhere." Veronica almost laughed. Jennifer went somewhere nearly every weekend. But defending herself would turn the conversation into a trial, and Veronica suddenly didn't want to be on trial. "I had plans, Mama." "Couldn't you go to the dinner for a little while and leave early?" There it was again. The assumption that Veronica's plans were the movable ones. No, her mother went quiet. Veronica's hand tightened around the phone. She wanted to explain. She wanted to tell her about Camille, about the hospital waiting room, about the birthday cards, about the years of friendship, about the dress she'd bought and the hair appointment and how long it had been since she'd gone somewhere simply because she wanted to. She could feel the explanation assembling itself. Then she stopped. "No," she repeated. "I'm going to stay for the whole dinner." Her mother's voice softened, but not kindly. "I don't know what's gotten into you lately." Veronica looked at herself in the mirror. Nothing had gotten into her. That was the strange part. For once, something hadn't been taken out. The dinner was beautiful. Not because anything extraordinary happened. That mattered. There was no grand revelation waiting for Veronica at the restaurant. No life-changing opportunity. No stranger who saw her across the room and transformed her future. There were linen napkins, too much food, old office stories, a slideshow Camille pretended to hate, and a chocolate cake with so many candles somebody joked they needed a fire permit. Camille cried during the speeches. Then she made everybody else cry. Later, she found Veronica near the dessert table and wrapped both arms around her. "You came," Veronica laughed. "Of course I came," Camille pulled back. "No, I mean you came. You always tell me you're going to come somewhere and then somebody needs something." The smile stayed on Veronica's face, but something underneath it shifted. Camille didn't seem to notice. She touched one of Veronica's earrings. "And look at you. Beautiful," Veronica thanked her. Then she went to the restroom and stood in front of the mirror for a long time. "You always tell me you're going to come somewhere, and then somebody needs something." She couldn't remember ever telling Camille that pattern, which meant Camille had seen it. Veronica wondered who else had. More painfully, she wondered why she hadn't. The next boundary was harder. Her mother called Wednesday morning. "Can you take me to my doctor's appointment Friday?" Veronica opened her calendar. "What time?" 1:30. Veronica had a quarterly review at 1. "I can't Friday afternoon. I can take you if they have something after 4. Or Bob might be able to. Bob is working. So am I." The words came out before Veronica could soften them. Her mother became quiet. Veronica's stomach clenched. "I know you're working, baby. I just thought since your job is more flexible." "It isn't." Another silence. Then, "Never mind. I'll figure something out." That sentence had controlled Veronica for years. "I'll figure something out." It meant, "You have disappointed me." It meant, "A good daughter would fix this." It meant, "You can still change your answer." Veronica opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her heart was beating ridiculously fast for a woman sitting alone in an office holding a telephone. Finally, she said, "Okay, if you can't find anybody, let me know and I'll help you look at other options." Her mother ended the call soon afterward. Veronica sat motionless. Her hands were trembling. That surprised her. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't insulted anyone. She hadn't refused to help her mother at all. She had simply declined to leave work in the middle of an important meeting, yet her body felt as though she'd done something dangerous. That was when Veronica began to understand that saying no was not difficult because she didn't know the word. It was difficult because of everything she had learned to expect after saying it. The family noticed quickly. At Sunday dinner, Aunt Lorraine asked whether Veronica could make the centerpieces for a cousin's baby shower. "When is it?" "Next Saturday." "I can't next Saturday." Lorraine blinked. "Can't?" "I'm busy." "Doing what?" Veronica nearly answered. Then she heard the question differently. "Doing what?" As though the legitimacy of her no depended upon whether Lorraine approved of the reason. "I already have plans." Lorraine stared at her for a second, then laughed. "Okay, Miss Busy." Everyone chuckled. Veronica smiled because that was what she did when something hurt, but wasn't technically cruel enough to confront. A few minutes later, Bob needed somebody to pick up a package because the delivery office was closer to Veronica's house. "Not tonight," she said. "I'm going home after dinner." "You pass right by there." "No, I don't. It's like 10 minutes out of your way. Then you can get it tomorrow." Bob stared at her. "What is wrong with you?" The table went quiet. There it was again. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Did I ask too much?" "What is wrong with you?" Veronica put down her fork. "Nothing." Bob leaned back. "I'm just saying, lately everything is no." That wasn't true. Veronica had brought dessert that evening. She had picked up her mother's prescription Thursday. She had helped Jennifer complete a school form for one of the children. She had spent 40 minutes on the phone with Aunt Lorraine the night before. But nobody mentioned those things. They remembered the no. Her mother sighed. "You have changed." Veronica looked around the table. Faces she loved. People she had shown up for, again and again. And for the first time, she wondered whether they knew how much of her showing up had required her to leave herself behind. She didn't answer. Not yet. For a while, Veronica overcorrected in the opposite direction. She began preparing explanations before anyone even asked. If she couldn't help, she produced evidence, meetings, receipts, appointments, prior commitments. She wanted her no to be indisputable. Then, one evening, Jennifer called while Veronica was watering the basil plant on her kitchen windowsill. "Can you take Jalen to practice tomorrow?" Veronica thought about it. She could. But she'd planned to go to the gym after work, then come home and cut the salmon she'd bought, instead of eating something over the sink at 9 o'clock. "I can't tomorrow." "What do you have?" Veronica looked at the little basil leaves, glistening with water. For once, the truth was embarrassingly ordinary. Nothing. Nothing that would sound important to anyone else. Nothing that could win a case. She had herself. "I have plans." "What plans?" Veronica almost answered. Instead, she said gently, "I can't take him tomorrow, Jennifer." Her sister exhaled loudly. "Fine." The call ended. Veronica stood in the kitchen, waiting for the guilt. It came. But something new came with it. Relief. She went to the gym the next evening. She cooked the salmon. She sat at the table to eat it instead of standing at the counter. The world did not end. Jalen got to practice. Veronica never even found out who drove him. That bothered her at first. Then it taught her something. Some emergencies only existed because everyone knew she would prevent them from becoming inconvenient. The real confrontation came 2 months later at their mother's birthday dinner. Veronica had organized most of it. She reserved the private ring, ordered the cake, collected photographs for a framed family collage, called 3 relatives who hadn't RSVP'd, picked up her mother and drove her to the restaurant. Nobody called Veronica selfish that night. Not until Jennifer mentioned Christmas. "We should do it at Veronica's again." Everyone began agreeing. Veronica looked up. Christmas at her house meant 2 days of cooking, cleaning before everyone arrived, cleaning after everyone left, rearranging furniture, buying extra groceries, finding somewhere for the children to sleep, and smiling through the exhaustion because everybody always said how much they loved Christmas at Veronica's. "I don't want to host this year." Conversation stopped. Bob laughed. "Here we go." Veronica looked at him. "Here we go what?" "Nothing." "No, say it." He shook his head. "You've just been different lately." Jennifer folded her arms. "I told Mama the same thing." Their mother looked uncomfortable. "Let's not do this tonight." But something in Veronica was tired of having the same conversation in pieces. "No, I'd actually like to know." "Different how?" Jennifer hesitated. "You used to be, I don't know, easier." The word landed softly. That made it worse. Easier. Veronica looked at her sister. "Easier for who?" Jennifer's expression changed. Bob stopped smiling. Nobody answered. Veronica felt her heartbeat begin to rise, but this time she didn't mistake the feeling for danger. She wasn't angry. She was finally hearing the conversation clearly. "I still help this family," she said. "I helped plan this dinner. I picked Nama up tonight. I watched the kids 2 weeks ago. I took Bob to get his car when it was in the shop. I didn't say you don't help, Jennifer said. But when I say no, everybody acts like something happened to me. Because you never used to. Veronica nodded. I know. That quieted the table. She looked down at her hands for a moment. I used to think being a good sister meant I should be available whenever you needed me. I thought being a good daughter meant Mama's needs should come before mine. I thought if I could do something, I didn't have a good enough reason not to. Her mother's face changed. Veronica continued. And most of the time, I wanted to help. That's the part I don't want anybody rewriting. I love all of you. I like doing things for you. She looked at Jennifer. But sometimes I didn't want to. Nobody moved. And I did them anyway. Her voice trembled slightly. Not because she was unsure. Because saying something true after years of hiding it can sound harsher than it is. I canceled things. I spent money I couldn't really spare. I left work. I gave up weekends. And every time I did it, I told myself it wasn't a big deal, because whatever I was giving up is only important to me. Her mother whispered her name. Veronica looked at her. I'm not blaming you, Mama. And she meant it. But I can't keep treating myself like I'm the least important person in every room. Nobody had an immediate answer. That was new too. Finally, Bob looked down at his plate. So where are we having Christmas? Veronica laughed. She couldn't help it. A second later, her mother laughed too. Then Jennifer. The tension didn't disappear. Neither did the pattern. But something had been named. And once Veronica could see it, disappearing became much harder. Not everyone adjusted gracefully. Aunt Lorraine continued making comments. Bob occasionally tried. It'll only take you a minute. Her mother still sometimes sounded wounded when Veronica couldn't come immediately. Jennifer improved, then slipped, then improved again. Veronica did too. There were days when she said yes and regretted it 10 minutes later. Days when she explained too much. Days when she agreed because somebody sounded disappointed and spent the rest of the evening angry with herself. Boundaries did not transform her overnight. They taught her to notice. That was different. She began noticing the moment her stomach tightened before she agreed to something. The way she sometimes smiled while resenting the person she was helping. The excuses she invented for wanting an evening alone. The strange belief that rest had to be earned, but usefulness didn't. And slowly, she started asking herself one question before answering anyone else. Do I actually want to say yes? Sometimes the answer was no. Sometimes it was yes. That was the part nobody had expected. Veronica didn't stop helping. She simply stopped helping automatically. One rainy Thursday evening, her mother called. Veronica was curled on the sofa under a blanket, watching a terrible mystery movie she'd become completely invested in. Baby? Hey, Mama. I hate to bother you. Veronica smiled. Her mother had never begun a request that way before. What happened? My kitchen faucet is leaking again. Not terrible. I put a bowl under it. Bod said he can come tomorrow, but I thought I'd ask if you were nearby. Veronica looked toward the window. Rain slid down the glass. She was warm. The movie had 25 minutes left. She could say no. That mattered. She pictured her mother moving that bowl under the sink every few minutes and trying not to make the problem sound bigger than it was. I'll come. Her mother paused. You sure? Veronica smiled. Yes. And that yes felt completely different. She put on her shoes. Months later, Camille asked Veronica to meet her for lunch. They sat outside a little cafe, and Camille complained cheerfully about retirement, while Veronica told her about work, her mother, the basil plant she'd somehow managed not to kill, and the pottery class she'd started taking on Wednesday nights. Pottery? Camille said. Don't get excited. Everything I make looks like an ashtray. Camille laughed. Then Veronica's phone buzzed. Jennifer. Veronica looked at the screen. For years, she would have answered before the second vibration. Instead, She turned the phone face down. Camille noticed. Everything okay? Veronica looked at the phone, then at her friend. I don't know. She picked up her iced tea. I'll find out after lunch. And they continued talking. There was no triumph in it. No punishment. No declaration that Veronica would never again be taken for granted. Just a woman sitting in the sunlight while her phone waited. For once, Veronica didn't disappear simply because somebody was calling. Maybe you know a Veronica. Maybe you've been her. The person everybody describes as dependable, easygoing, generous, the one who doesn't mind. And maybe one day you said no. Not cruelly, not angrily, just no. And somebody looked at you as though you had become someone they didn't recognize. Sometimes people experience your boundary as a personality change because your lack of boundaries had become part of how their lives worked. Their discomfort does not automatically mean your boundary is wrong. A healthy relationship has room for your yes, and it has room for your no. Veronica hadn't stopped loving her family. She hadn't become selfish. She hadn't become difficult. She had simply learned that love did not require her constant availability. And once she understood that, something remarkable happened. Her yes became hers again. So did her time, her plans, her rest, her life. They thought she had changed. The truth was, she had finally stopped disappearing. Her story is fictional. The pattern is real. Dear hearts, thank you for spending this time with us in the Velvet Circle. If this story helped you recognize something you once experienced, witnessed, minimized, or participated in, subscribe and become part of the Velvet Circle, where we learn to recognize the patterns that can be so difficult to see while we're living inside them. A community where recognition becomes responsibility and responsibility becomes change. Did you see yourself or someone you care about in the story? Tell someone. Ask for help. And until we meet again, remember, you are allowed to take up space in your own life.
Please don't forget to like this video, share with your friends, and leave a comment below. Subscribe, join the family, and let us know where you are watching and listening from. The lessons you learned, and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Thank you.